Yo, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another special episode of Livestream Legends. Today we're tackling the absolute minimum that you need to get started streaming. So many people are putting up hurdles and excuses around technology and can't get this set up or do this to start their streaming journey. And I'm here to tell you, I promise it is easier than you think. We are going to be tapping into the lowest cost and highest value gear guide. We're essentially going to load you up with everything you need to get started for a pro looking stream that doesn't take a lot of effort on your end. So if you are here in the chat, ready to roll, light it up, let's go! Let's see who we got in the mix here. Andy Kovacs dropping the fire real quick. Good to see you, brother. Juana, welcome to the party. Good old Enrique is back in action. Chris Hennessy rocking and rolling over on Twitch. Thank you guys so much. Let me know where you're tuning in from. If you're catching the replay, skip ahead just a quick minute or so and we'll get started. But everybody that's joining us, Simon, I see you in the building. My girl, Teresa, Sean Porter, this is amazing. Ladies and gentlemen, today we're gonna be going into the absolute minimum you need to start streaming. I promise it's easier than you think. Yo, look at this room loading up. Thank you guys so much for joining. This has been so fun week after week. Pedro, welcome to the party. Just curious, who else is tuning in? If you're lurking, please just drop a quick little comment. Let us know you're here in the mix. We'd love to see who's with us. We're live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and LinkedIn as well, all thanks to Restream. All of this entire show is powered by Restream, so thank you guys so much for joining the party. Wayne Gabriel seems to follow me around everywhere online. Good to see you, brother. So let's just jump straight into it, because what we're going to be tackling today is something that a lot of people put up unnecessary excuses, and that's about getting started streaming. Just going live the first time is literally the most difficult piece. So I'm here to try and minimize those hurdles for you, and that's what we're going to chat about today, is a minimalist stream setup. And what really pushed me towards this, you guys, is honestly, every week I'm just sharing what's on, what I've been going through on my end. And what I've really been distracted by and focusing on was the assumption that I needed this fancy, big broadcasting rig machine that I ordered a long time ago, and it's still not arrived. So what I'm discovering is the other end of the spectrum. What is the absolute least that you need to get started with streaming and to produce good, high quality streams? And that's what I've been tapping into the last couple weeks, last couple months, to share with you guys. So stick around for everything we're going to be chatting today. And I also have a gear guide that will come in at around $100 or so, depending on Amazon prices and availability. But this is what we're going to be tackling today, is the formula that I've discovered for the minimum amount that you need to start streaming but looks super pro. And these are what we're going to tap into today, is how to get a USB mic set up to sound like one of these really nice fancy XLR microphones here. We're going to tap into how to make a USB mic sound pro, and then the same exact thing with a USB webcam. Webcams have gotten ridiculously good. I'll share all the intel there for how to make it look as crisp as possible without breaking the bank. And then the last piece here is how do we connect this all together with software and a device of something that you most likely already have in your home. So thanks for joining. Again, if you guys are just tuning in, please drop a quick little comment, like this video, do all of the engagement things so I can know that you're here and more people can see this video. So without further ado, let's jump into the microphone. I've alluded to this several times in our shows before, but the number one thing that you can and should focus on is audio. Audio quality will always leave a better impression than good video quality. Obviously, both is ideal, but in most cases, if you can only choose one, make sure your audio is as clean as possible. And one of the minimalist setups here is using a USB microphone. For a long while, you actually used to be restricted to these XLR mics, which are the traditional recording studio cables and inputs, outputs. Thankfully, the beauty of technology has gotten these USB mics so dang good. So I actually can recommend it. Any of the USB mics in the $40 to $60 range are gonna work for a pro setup if you know what to set up. So all that you need for this to work is some device that has USB capability. Essentially, your laptop and most computers all have this already good to go. You don't need to get a new device, and you can get crisp audio through these very easily using something like a virtual mixer. A virtual mixer is something that you can use instead of a hardware mixer. If you're familiar with like recording studio environment, when you see all those knobs and levers and buttons and inputs, outputs, that was a hardware mic or a hardware mixer in that context where you plug mics in and out. What's much better nowadays is actually using a virtual mixer. Again, this technology has gotten so freaking good. So you can use a virtual mixer that will, exactly as it sounds, help you route and control your audio. This is something I'm discovering gives you virtually limitless capabilities when done right. So look into something like vMix as a virtual mixer, or if you're already rocking and rolling on Restream, they have audio controls split by channel and split by user. So you can actually use the Restream Studio, which is what I have going on for this show, to control audio in creative and useful ways. So keep that in mind as you pursue this. You need to be able to control the audio once it's captured. And then the last piece of this puzzle is the settings. The settings of your microphone, either using plugins or whatever various effects you have available, can actually make a dramatically huge difference. So the suggested settings that I recommend you look into are these three right here. The first one, which is a noise gate. So essentially what a noise gate does is it looks at your audio levels and says, if an audio signal is lower than this point, remove the audio completely. So this is brilliant for humming, background noise stuff, fans, little clicky stuff on your desk and table, anything that doesn't reach a specific level on there is going to get eliminated. Anything that goes above that threshold comes through. So that noise gate piece that we're looking at here is a big win for stuff sounding super clean when you're not speaking. If you don't have one of these, you'll notice that hiss or a buzz or a hum of some sort. So the number one focus point here is a noise gate, and then moving into EQ and compression. You may have seen this on some of your speakers, audio devices you set up, and essentially this EQ here changes the tone of your voice. If there's anything that you need to amplify, turn it up a little bit, you have full control. And then the same thing, anything that you need to cut out or remove from the frequency spectrum, EQ will work wonders. And then the last piece of this puzzle here is compression. What compression does is it levels your audio. So instead of your audio being super, super, super quiet, and then super freaking loud in moments, it brings those louder moments down a little, and it brings those quieter moments up a little so that your audio levels aren't as dramatic, which for people that are listening, this makes a huge win when things aren't going up and down and going crazy loud and crazy quiet. It helps just get a super crisp, clean audio in this mix. So big thank you to everybody joining here. We're tapping into the best practices for a minimalist setup. So we're just finishing the USB mic. Good to see everybody jumping in here. Majida, Sean, Robert, Marky B, all of you guys. Doug is hanging with us. Thank you, brother. Appreciate you hanging. So we've gone over the USB mics that have gone really good over the years. Now let's get into the visual side of things, which is going to lead us to a USB webcam. Same exact theme as what was going on with the microphones. These things have gotten ridiculously good in recent years. So you no longer need the super fancy Canon DLSR, mirrorless, this like $2,000 camera. You can actually get away with like a $40, $50 webcam that presents in 1080p HD. So that's actually what I'm on right now, is I'm presenting here in 1080 HD. And I even think, yeah, like something this cheap can look this good. You don't gain a whole lot going for those extra hundreds of dollars or even thousands for some cameras. So this is definitely the sweet spot you want to focus on, especially considering we're going to get into the last piece here, which is connecting to your device and your internet, which is a critical factor for making these work. So look for a $40, $50 webcam. The one I'm on here is a Logitech, but there's a bunch of brilliant, reliable brands, and sticking within that range will bump you up to 1080p HD. Anything beyond that is a little bit excessive and you don't really gain much. So in the context of managing your video, managing it to look as crisp as possible and as clean as possible, you need some type of software or settings to adjust. In this case, OBS is really great for advanced, super complex type of stuff. Is going to get you every single visual and video setting you need on OBS. And then Restream itself, what I'm using right now is a very simple way to input video sources. If I want to fix this, put me on the big screen instead of the little one, all that fun little stuff is available within Restream. Give it a shot if you haven't before. And then similar to the audio, there are specific settings that you want to focus on when it comes to optimizing and getting your video as clear as possible. And the two settings that I've noticed give the most dramatic effect is the exposure and the white balance. So these are two settings that you'll find when you install your webcam or whatever you've got set up. It'll have some type of software or control that you can change. And these are the settings you want to look for, is exposure and white balance. When these are off, stuff starts to get either really washed out and really like bright white, which I certainly don't need. I already white enough over here trying to struggle with that one. And then the opposite can happen as well, is colors and everything that's in the scene isn't visible if there's not enough light coming through to the camera. So focus on the exposure and the white balance. If you can nail those two pieces, your webcam can look super, super crisp. And I'm still working on optimizing the settings I have on my end to get it just a little bit better each time. So let me know what you guys think this video quality is. If this is looking pro, this is on the gear that I'm mentioning right now. I don't have a fancy DLSR camera. I'm still using a webcam on just sitting on top of my monitor right here. So I promise you, all the excuses you're thinking of, they're not valid. They're not valid. This stuff is way easier than you think. So let's keep it rolling. Beyond video now, beyond the webcam, the last thing we can focus on is your lighting situation. The lighting situation and your environment is the final factor of this all coming together. And what I've discovered, again, a super simple one tool that has adjustable lighting is probably all you need. So this adjustable temperature is the key piece here. So when I was mentioning stuff being way too bright white or kind of overblown out, the opposite end of that is stuff not having enough color. And this temperature here, temperature control in the lighting, is something I've been toying with for if you want that super, super crisp, bright white. Or the other end of the spectrum is more of a warm, like kind of like restaurant style, sort of orangey, warmish tone. And depending on the vibe you want to set, the tone you want to set, that adjustable lighting will let you leverage either direction rather than just being locked into what you have. So that's a really brilliant thing that you can get for cheap with ring lights or just LED panels that you can control. Look into LED lighting with adjustable temperature. And then the cheapest option of them all, natural lighting. If you are lucky enough to be in a space where you have large windows in your room, especially like floor to ceiling windows, those do brilliant for enabling natural light to come in. Situations that are not great for natural light are ones like the ones I have. When I open this window, it's one single window in the room, and it's almost like a spotlight, a beam that just shoots at me. So if you do have larger windows that work great for natural light, that's your cheapest option. And if you can consistently record around the same time, for some reason, this just feels right when you're in natural light. It's difficult to replicate it with artificial light, but I would heavily suggest that if you do have the location benefit of those windows. Now, the last piece, as always, is plugging this into your end destination or your software in the last piece. So simple software like Restream Studio, again, gives you great control over different things that you want to do over time. And then more advanced stuff like OBS is just a whole nother level of control and filters and all this crazy stuff you can add to the mix. So that is the last piece of the puzzle. We went into USB microphones and then USB webcams and then a simple lighting source. Those three pieces will literally give you a pro stream like this. I can say that because I'm using them at the moment, excluding the USB mic. Thankfully, I've had this one for a long while, but this is the setup that I think a lot of people really put in their head. So many hurdles that they need this fancy gear, and I'm sorry if that was your excuse, but you no longer have any excuse to stop starting. Just test the waters and get it rolling. So Let me check in real quick with the chat, see who's hanging here. Thank you guys so much for joining. Jairus Tucker in the house. Welcome to the building. Doug is in the mix. Marky B still hanging. Mary Davis, Valerie, Majida, Andy. Yo, thank you guys so much for hanging. If you are over on the YouTube side, drop a quick little comment. Looks like LinkedIn is rocking and rolling, but I don't see any of you YouTube lurkers here. Drop a quick little comment. Let us know you're here, and let's continue the adventure. And the last piece we're talking about here, where do we plug all this into? Where does this cheap microphone, this very cost effective, I don't even want to say cheap because they're good, they're really good quality in actuality. So these high value devices, what do we do to control them? And in most cases, you already have a device to plug it into. If you have a laptop or a computer of any sort from the last like 5 to 10 years, you are ready to stream. That is a promise, especially now with tools like Restream Studio, which is actually running 100% in my browser. You can use any web browser, any computer to start and control a professional stream. That is the simplest setup here, is plugging all this in, getting it going, and I've literally tested it. It takes about 5 clicks to go live. It literally takes about 5 clicks to create your account, sync it, and go live. It is that simple. If you're curious about that, jump into the description here and you can get started with Restream Studio. And then for most of you technical nerds out here, I see some of the techies hanging with us. I see you. You're going to want to utilize something more like OBS Studio, which also plugs directly into Restream, but just gives you a little bit more advanced control over streams. And the primary difference here is, one is super simple, very easy for everything to work, go smooth, but you don't have super advanced complexity details and features and layers and all that stuff. And then OBS is essentially the opposite. Lots of stuff that you can do with scenes and layers and transitions, but it also means there's more room for stuff to go wrong. So those are the options to consider when you're plugging these into a software or a studio to actually run the show. Those two options will cover anything you need. And finally, it's the invisible but most critical piece of this puzzle: the internet connection. Streaming is absolutely vital in needing a Ethernet cable or some form of stable connection. So if you've been attempting to do this on Wi-Fi, do anything in your power to upgrade that Wi-Fi to a hardwired connection that is as stable as possible, because you'll see here, it doesn't matter if you had, even if you had a 4K Canon, like a super ultra HD camera, if your internet is crap, it will not mean anything to your stream. You have to consider the weakest link of the chain in your streaming environment. All that's happening when you're streaming is you're sending video and audio information to a destination. It's as simple as that. And in order to do that, you need a stable, reliable internet connection. Now, what exactly that is usually around, honestly, 5 to 10 megabytes per second does pretty well. Anything above that, you are going to be in a really solid spot. So those are going to be the best areas to focus on in most cases, is making sure your internet's good, getting any type of studio set up, whether it's super advanced or super simple, You'll need that to control the show. And then the last piece of it all is really just making sure that your setup is reliable so that you're not dealing with things going wrong mid-stream. So ultimately what this leads to is I am breaking down every one of your possible excuses from starting streaming because you literally can get what we've mentioned today for around $100. I know a lot of people were dropping great suggestions here in the chat. I am trying to keep up with all your guys' comments. Thank you so much for being here today. But what we've discovered is a $40 USB mic with the right settings can get you so freaking far. And then the exact same thing with your webcam. Super cheap ones are performing really great if you can get into that 1080p category. Even 720 HD still looks pretty dang good, and some platforms like LinkedIn don't even allow streaming beyond 720. So you'll be set with those two gear pieces, and then the last piece is your lighting, which can either be free if you have natural lighting or a really good ring light or LED light that you can control the temperature. So if anybody has been saying this was too expensive, I can't afford this, I can't get started, I don't have the gear, you no longer have any excuses. Reach out to me. I'd love to hook you up with a specific setup if you need help with anything. Or even if you're halfway there or 2/3 of the way there and just need one of these, let me know directly and I can likely hook you up so that you can have the gear for you to thrive. That is the entire point of all of this. So we are about to hit the 30-minute mark. So you guys that have been hanging with us today, let's fire up a little bit of open Q&A. So if you're hanging here today, drop a quick little question in the chat, or at least just let us know you're chilling. Even if you don't have a question, say hello, let us know you're hanging out. And right out the gates here, let's see, Chris is asking, what size ring light do you recommend? Ooh, interesting. So for the ring light, what is actually more critical than the size itself, I'm discovering is the controllable temperature or brightness. That's going to be one of those things that really helps give you more control over what you ultimately need. But I would guess anything from like the smaller 6-inch ones might be pushing it. But the 12 to 15-inch ring lights are going to be ace, especially if you only need one. The alternative option here, hopefully I don't regret this, I'm going to try and show the light I have, is an LED panel light like that. So it's basically just a square LED panel rather than the ring light version. But in that case, I do use two of them instead of one. So either one of those can definitely hook you up, whether it's a ring light or just a plain panel. Both will get you to the final destination. So, ooh, I see Billy hopped in here. Good to see you, brother. Thanks for jumping in. Daniel Hall, good to see you as well, brother. Oh my gosh, look at this room loading up. So thank you, Chris, for that question. Anybody else that wants to drop a specific question about gear, about streaming, about setups, that's what the second half here is for. So let's let it rip. And let me see if there was any other questions. I apologize if I missed something earlier. Just drop the question again because there is a lot of comments to go scroll through. So I'm just going to start with the fresh ones here. If anybody wants to sneak them in here, that is exactly what this moment is for. Let's get let's turn on little tunes. Let's turn on some tunes while we're hanging out here. Couple more questions coming in. Oh, Tuma hanging out over on Facebook. Thank you so much. Amazing to see this. I think I saw a question from Majida about dual view cam streaming. So this is gonna be something you want to focus on for your studio setup, essentially. So we mentioned earlier the options of Restream Studio and OBS in general. Both of these are going to be ways that you can get a dual view camera setup rocking and rolling. So essentially, Majida, the setup that you want for this in order to do a dual view cam setup is one primary face cam on a webcam or whatever you have, and you can actually use any other device to join for a second cam. If it doesn't need to be super HD quality, you can use your phone. We've actually done that here in the Restream Studio. You can use your phone as a second cam, and this is brilliant for artists like yourself if you need to show you while you're physically present in the world, and then another camera or another scene for the art itself or whatever the second camera is. And ultimately what you can do once you're plugged into something like Restream Studio here, you now have control to make, maybe you want this to be your face cam and then the other one to be your art, or vice versa. You have full control to set it up as you desire, or maybe a little 50-50 action. Clearly that doesn't work for this presentation style setup, but for something like an artist that has something going on, maybe this type of setup would be better. Or this layout. You have so many options, Majida. Just getting a second device synced into the studio is really the primary battle, and then from there you are good to go with whatever you need to do. So let's see if any other questions snuck in here. Thanks for hopping in, Van. Shwana still hanging around. Thank you so much, you guys. We are gonna wrap up here in a second. What is your background? Well, this is a brilliant one. So my background is actually a extra studio, or not an extra studio, an extra room in my house that I converted into a little studio. And all that we have here is acoustic treatment foam, fairly cheap setup, and then these corner shelves here in the back were, again, another super cheap thing from Amazon. And the lighting above is actually holiday LED floodlights that are facing down from the ceiling. So it looks actually kind of janky. It's not super professional, but you can see up there, that's essentially what's giving that surreal kind of background color and vibe back there is LED floodlights on two separate colors. So that is my setup. And this is another brilliant question here from Wayne. Do you watch yourself while recording, or do you watch only a screen with contents on it? Wayne, I'm actually stuck in the middle of this right now. So the monitor I'm looking at right here below this camera is the one controlling the studio. So in that context, I'm looking at myself. And then I have a second monitor right above this one, right above the cam. And that's where I'm controlling the contents here that we were looking at earlier. So ultimately, I have a little bit of both going on, but being mindful of the camera being in the center. So when I'm looking down below it, I'm still not like completely looking like way the hell down here. And then same thing behind here. I know when I'm probably looking up here, it probably looks a little wonky from your guys' end, but that's the setup I currently have, is one monitor directly in front of me with the cam and everything going on in the show, and then a second monitor behind the webcam with the content. That's what works for me, but that's whatever works for you and makes you the most comfortable, man. That is going to be my ideal suggestion. And now, Billy jumping in here. what is the best way to play music on Restream with OBS. So what I'm using, Billy, is an audio mixer. The one I specifically have is called a Go XLR, and it essentially gives me 4 channels that I can control input and output of audio. And for that's enough for me, and I'm able to do my normal mic, set up a single channel for music, and then another channel for the guest when I have them, and then that 4th slot, that 4th channel is essentially for any universal audio, whether it's in a screen share or playing a video or just stuff directly from the computer and the system. So that is what I use, is an audio mixer that feeds those 4 channels into things, and then when I choose the studio setup, so I'm gonna pull this up here real quick. It's gonna get very matrixy for a second. My audio choice here is actually, oh god, look at this inception, a full stream mix. So it's my mic plus the music we were mentioning, as well as when I have a guest, they're merged into the same audio source as well. So that's what I do, so that I have everything controlled by the same thing. Let me get off that presentation again. But Billy, that's what I use to give myself one source. And then when you're in OBS, rather than having 4 sources to keep track of for the mic and the music and this guest and that guest, I have one single source of audio going out to the stream, and obviously that helps for controlling the stream. You don't have to adjust 4 things at a time, and then the other benefit is I am sending that signal to my monitoring headphones, so I'm hearing the exact same thing that the stream is hearing. So this does mean I am currently hearing my own voice, which is a little trippy to get used to, but it does simplify everything to give me clarity that I know what I'm hearing is the same thing that's being broadcasted to the stream. So that was a little bit of a long-winded answer, but thank you so much, Billy, for jumping in here on that question. And let's sneak in one more if anybody's here with us. We can sneak in uno más, and then we'll wrap up this show. So what we talked about today, just for a quick little summary, we can go through it here, is the cheapest way to get set up. And what we talked about was a USB microphone. These have gotten ridiculously good in recent years, and the settings you want to focus on there are your noise gate, your EQ, and compression. These will make things sound super pro. The other piece is a USB webcam. These are very easy to get a hold of for 40-50 bucks. And then if you can focus on cleaning up the exposure and the white balance of these, you're gonna get super far for it looking very pro. And the last piece we mentioned was getting your lighting together to actually accommodate the tone or the vibe you're shooting for. If you really want to go cheap budget studio, you can actually use natural lighting, and you'll just have to be mindful of the time that you're shooting. And then the last piece was just plugging it all into studio somewhere, whether it's Restream Studio, OBS Studio, or anything like that. That's what brings it all together. And with those pieces, you should be able to produce a high quality stream like this one that you're watching right now, for around $100 or so. And I am adamant that you can start the journey and you can do it. I promise it's easier than you think. So appreciate you guys so much for joining us today. This is the end of the line for Livestream Legends. Thank you guys for joining the episode. As always, we have a community of streamers and content creators going on in our Discord. So I'm going to go ahead. If anybody wants to drop our Discord link on LinkedIn, we would love to have you join the party. We've got pretty much people going 24/7, connecting, collaborating in so many brilliant ways. And that is what we're trying to do week after week with this Livestream Legends show, is help you unleash your creativity and become a live stream legend. So thank you guys for joining. Usama, welcome to the party, brother. Everybody else that joined me today, thank you for joining the party, and we will catch you next week for Live Stream Legends. Take care, y'all.